Hi, I'm Hallie, and I want to welcome you to the Odd Life Podcast. That's spelled AWED, which stands for Awake, Well, and Empowered. In this space, you will hear inspirational stories, candid and heartfelt conversations, as well as advice from experts, all with the intention of helping women like you live odd AF. Because I believe the more of us that live awake, well, and empowered, the better this world will be. So thank you for being here and welcome to your odd life. Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Hallie. How are you? What's going on? I just want to say hello to some people that recently reached out to me over the past couple of weeks regarding the last few podcast episodes. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts, for reaching out and saying, hey, I've been through the same thing. I just think it's important for us to acknowledge a couple of things. Acknowledge that we're not alone and that we're going through hard things. And two, that you're trying to make a connection about something that's going on in your life that can bring somebody else closer to you. Whether it's me or a neighbor or a friend or somebody, I hope you keep sharing your thoughts and your feelings about what you're listening to. And maybe something that we've talked about on the podcast is giving you the courage or the words or the encouragement or anything to help you move forward and live a more odd life. That's what we're trying to do here at this podcast. So thank you for letting me know the things that are hitting home and for just letting me be a part of your life by sharing your experiences with me. I love it. That's why I'm doing this, is to connect with others and to help you connect with other people in your life too, just through the inspiring stories we're sharing here on the podcast. And lets me know that the things we're talking about here are helpful. So thank you for letting me know. Moving on. There's something that's been going on with me the last few years that I'm not quite sure exactly why it's happened. I'm going to give some theories here in a second, but I have loved it. And it's also made my life more difficult because of it. What I've noticed about my emotional health as I've gotten older is I feel like I'm much more tuned in to all of my emotions. They sort of feel not like high alert, but just always there for me to reach for. What I mean is I feel so much more tuned in to how I'm feeling. And I don't think it's by accident. I think there's a couple things that have gone on in my life. For sure, I've gotten older and I don't want to waste time on certain things. So sometimes if it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no. For a long time, I was like, is that a hell yes? I don't know. Is that a hell no? I don't know. And that's much more defined now. It's like a visceral reaction within me. Hell yes. Hell no. And there's not a whole lot in between. So there's that's going on. And it may be because for so long, a lot of my emotions were suppressed. When you repress your trauma, you stuff all that away. It goes someplace and you try not to think about it again, but it doesn't dissipate. It's back in there somewhere. There's the phrase, if you numb the dark, you numb the light. That's a famous Brene Brown phrase that she uses in the book, Daring Greatly. And when I started to tune in more to who I am, that became much more evident that I had been numbing a lot of my light over the years. Emotional suppression, ignoring, trying to push things away. I think I was emotionally numb because I was not equipped to handle my emotions. And two, I think there's some things physically. I was on the pill. It's like being flatlined, just like living one note your entire life. Imagine listening to a song that had one note, and that's the entire song played on one note. That's what I felt like life was like when I was on the pill. That was from about my early 20s to mid 30s. My husband eventually got a vasectomy after our last child and had been a couple of years old, and we knew that we were done, took care of that. I noticed a lot had changed after getting off the pill. I felt more. I was able to recognize emotions. I was able to feel, like even physically feel my body better. So I think that's part of it. I do feel like, we've acknowledged this before, is that when I stopped drinking alcohol, is like I turned the color up on my television set of life. I saw all the colors, felt all the feelings. Everything just went like, wow. It was like living in Willy Wonka land. And then also hormonal changes, getting on hormones, having some major fluctuations. There can be a lot of things happening because of that too, midlife. But what I want to say about that is while it's wonderful to feel stuff, obviously the good, it makes you address stuff in your life. You can no longer ignore, because this is what happens. Let me back up for a second. Society has taught us to suppress our emotions. We are given a gazillion examples and things at our fingertips to help us numb out and push things away. Television, online shopping, gambling, social media, eating, you name it. We can do so many things to help push away our emotions. And the reason why I was thinking a lot about this was I noticed something that I had done over the weekend. I noticed my reaction to listening to a story. We were driving home from Colorado, and my husband was listening to something on his phone as I was reading a book. He had been watching basketball, and it flipped over to 60 Minutes, I believe. And there was a gentleman telling a story about the Indian relay races. So what they do is have 3 horses. The rider hops on at the starting line, hops on bareback, and takes off. Does a lap, comes in hot, jumps off the horse and gets another horse and takes off, does another lap, and then does, so total 3 times, 3 laps. And the winner, of course, gets money. And why this made me emotional is because it's part of the Native American history, part of their culture. What they used to do when they were allowed to live their culture, there's a whole story behind the relay races. I don't want to get into all the history of that. That's not the point. But a gentleman came on there and talked about how these relay races have saved his life. And he mentions that his family, living on the reservation, his parents both fell to substance abuse and depression. And when the chance to train and learn how to do these relay races, they allowed him to escape that and to do something productive with his life. And it saved him, he said, and it helped break the cycle of all of that his family's gone through. And that made me tear up because I put myself in his shoes. I thought about how that must feel so hopeless and depressing to know that's your potential future because you had no other example except for your parents, and to have this outlet and a way to do something that felt like you were honoring your culture. And then it got me thinking about what I'd heard of the Native American culture and why they are so depressed and why they are so reliant on substances to help them get through, is because their culture has been completely ripped away from them. What they've done for thousands of years is no longer available to them. And that hits me in such a visceral way. The shame, the abuse, the grief that they felt. And what do you do with that grief when you have no outlet to get rid of that? What's happened to the Native American culture? It's one of the biggest blights of our history, along with slavery and everything else. So I'm sitting here listening to this guy's story, thinking about what I'd heard, and I just wanted to bawl my eyes out. I did tear up, but I cried. And I think what's happening with me is that by completely tuning in to my life, paying attention to what I like, what I don't like, what feels good, what doesn't feel good, I'm allowing myself to hear my thoughts, to feel my feelings, and to respect and honor them, rather than tell them, oh, this is inconvenient, this is too much, I'm too emotional. Yes, there's a point where we can be off the deep end. Little things spark this huge reaction. That's not what I'm talking about. It's actually an appropriate response. And for so long, I did not have that. It got me thinking about our society today and how perhaps a lot of what we're seeing in the news and what we're seeing in comments of social media posts, just this absolute vitriol that people come back with in responses or things they're sharing or what we're hearing about what people are doing out in the world. And to me, it is screaming, we are a bunch of repressed emotional beings. We have lost touch with what makes us human. And when we don't tune into what makes us human, we do things that are inhumane. When we suppress our emotions in the short term, we have high blood pressure, we have memory issues. Sometimes I can't pull memories back up. We repress things, emotions, and also then represses memories. I can't tell you how many times I've had friends say, oh, remember that time in college we did this and this? Nope, I don't remember that. Or my sister will recall something from our childhood. I don't remember that. So what happens is it represses our memories as well. And then think about cortisol. When we repress our emotions, it creates the stress within us. And then consistent elevated stress has high cortisol, and then cortisol does things to our blood sugar. So then that leads to diabetes. There's so many things that can happen. There's this domino effect that happens when we repress our emotions. And I have to address this part too. Suppressing our emotions, they don't go away. They don't dissipate. They just go into our subconscious and they're still hanging out there, still affecting us. We just don't know it. So it's almost like you've got a recycle bin or the trash can and you just keep filling it up and put it away in the pantry and can't see it. It's eventually going to start stinking. It's eventually going to start overflowing and you have to deal with it. And then you've got a much bigger issue because we didn't deal with it in the first place. I was reading an article because it's come up in my husband and I, our conversations we've had about our relationship. There's times I've mentioned, and he knows this, there's times I mentioned to him, I don't know if you even have emotions. Like, I feel like you're going through life trying to solve problems and show up to work and go work out and all these other things. But where are your emotions? Like, let's talk about the things you're feeling, and not just anger and not just worry and anxiety about the kids or whatever. I'm talking about other emotions. So there's this thing out there called alexithymia. So what alexithymia is, in very simple terms, is it's the inability to pass emotional information from the right side of the brain to the language section of the left side of the brain. And that used to be mostly attached to the autistic population. But now there's a thing called normative male alexithymia. And a lot of studies have found that NMA results in a fear of intimacy or low quality of communications in relationships. And I think it's one of the biggest struggles we have today is this toxic masculine bullshit we keep hearing about where, suck it up, man up, pull your panties up, shit like that. Stop feeling that, stop being that way, suck it up, be a man, whatever that means. So it has this whole toxic quality about it where if you're not able to suck it up, then you're not a man. And I'm loving the examples the Kelsey brothers are setting. Those two men have cried more on their podcasts and each other's games, saying goodbye to football. And it's wonderful. Would you tell Jason Kelsey he's not a man because he cries? I dare you. He's in touch with his emotions and he's an emotional guy. And that's okay. And you know what? That's actually just normal. When you go through a lot of hard things in life and you're saying goodbye to a sport that has given you so much, if you didn't cry, I'd be scared. What's happening though in our world right now is that we are expecting men, especially, to suppress their emotions, to not be so emotional. This is what makes us human, is to have these emotions. If we do not express them, what happens? They get stuck inside and they show up as rage. We become inhuman. And a lot of times then that suppressed emotion over time is why we have such barbaric crimes in the world. But here we are as society saying, oh, men shouldn't cry, men shouldn't do this. They need to be chopping down trees, scaring off wild animals, shooting guns, being tough men. And then the same token, we're confused of why we can't have great relationships because we aren't able to talk about stuff. Well, guess what? We have no fucking clue how to communicate because one half of us has been told to not talk about emotions. And the other half, we're just suppressing them because we don't know where to go with them. And so we're just this hot mess. And just imagine if we could show up authentically as ourselves and say exactly how we're feeling. And the other person receives it and they acknowledge their own feelings and what's going on within them. And we acknowledge their feelings. And guess what that is? That's called empathy. And right now, it seems so lost. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I think for so long, to show any emotion that you were over emotional versus just being a normal fucking human. And so when I said earlier that it's made my life much better, but also harder, it's because of that right there. It feels like your life is in Technicolor. And I feel alive when I feel these emotions. I feel so much more present. When I'm feeling something, I'm in the moment. I love feeling things. I watched Matilda, the remake, a couple years ago. My daughter and I were laying there on the couch watching Matilda. We watched the original version years ago and then this new one. And at the end, when her parents abandon her and leave her without even a second thought, I am bawling my eyes out because I'm thinking about this poor child whose parents have absolute zero attachment to her and what that would feel like. And thank God for the teacher that loves her and that adopts her, but just bawling my eyes out. And my daughter's looking over me. She's crying too, but she's looking over me. I'm like, God, this is just brutal on the soul to watch this. I will never forget laying on the couch watching the movie with my daughter because of how emotional I was in that moment. I don't ever want to not feel those things. I want to feel, I love watching something that makes me laugh and cry and feel all the emotions. The thing I will not watch, I do not want to watch crime drama. I don't want to watch somebody beat the shit out of somebody else or rape somebody or anything like that. I just can't. I can't watch that stuff. I don't like watching barbaric things in shows. Once in a great while will I watch something that has some violence in it. But if I know it's like good guys versus bad guys, then I tend to be okay with it. So by feeling all these emotions, it's seared into my brain. And the flip side of that, though, it's made things hard because I cannot turn that off. I'm going to feel the way that I feel. And it's caused me to ask a lot of questions and show up in a way that people aren't used to, or show up in a way that makes me want to talk about these emotions, where other people have been like, I don't want to discuss any of that. I don't even know what you're talking about right now. So when you're starting to feel a lot more emotion and express a lot more emotion, sometimes it makes it difficult because when you start to live this way, you can't go back. It's hard to go from loving the way that you're feeling and feeling all these emotions to then wanting to numb again. It just doesn't happen. Because this is what life is about, is living out loud and living awake and feeling alive. And so what I'm trying to do is just savor the moments when I'm feeling something intensely, the good and the bad, honestly. It's kind of like living your gratitude list out loud. And what I'm finding is that I'm becoming more me every day because of it. As I mentioned before, for so long, I repressed a lot of how I was feeling or didn't share it or stuffed it down. And it's so freeing to just say how I'm feeling or to show how I'm feeling and not feeling ashamed about it or nervous about it or scared about it. You're just being a freaking human. This is what we're supposed to do on this earth. And by being human and showing my emotions and expressing myself, it allows somebody else to do the same. And guess what happens then? We make a connection. Imagine what this world would be like if we all were able to express ourselves clearly through emotion, through words, through actions in a way that was healthy. Because now most of us see the examples of what not to do. Excessive drinking, substance abuse, drug abuse. Like there's a gazillion different ways to shop online, to spend our money and fill the holes, right? We're filling holes, not talking about it, stuffing it down, holding it in. We are training ourselves to be this massive vessel of just hurt and emotion that is bursting at the seams to come out. And we have rage and violent acts and rape and all these things that are going on. And then we're surprised. And how can we be surprised by the amount of aggression in the world? We are constantly preaching this message of don't show emotion, suck it up, pull your skirt up, man up, nut up, whatever those other things they can say. And it's bullshit. And so I want to really leave you with the idea of finding ways to be with your emotions, to help bring them up. Some of the best ways I know how to do this are writing in a journal. When I'm frustrated and I don't really know even how to express myself, if I sit down and just let it all, literally letting my pen just write. I have an idea maybe of what I want to talk about because it's an incident that happened and I start writing about it. The next thing you know, I've either created a solution or I've worked through my own part of something that had happened. Maybe it was my fault. It helps me see the situation more clearly. I can realize if I was irrational in the situation, or maybe just processing an emotion like anger. Just let it out. And maybe something happened that it's allowed me to process it in a way that's healthy, to either create a solution or just sit in those emotions as I'm writing. It's a way of helping it dissipate, honestly. It's helping it process. And when you process it, it starts to flow out of you rather than staying stuck inside you. Exercising is another great way. Depending on the situation, you could use it to numb, but a lot of times it's a way to help us. I think when I'm exercising, especially going for a walk, if I don't put my headphones in and I just listen to nature around me, a lot of times I will be processing what I just went through or what I'm feeling, and it helps me work through it. It's much more helpful to do that than sitting in front of a TV screen and numbing out, eating a bowl of popcorn the size of my head. Other things I like to do too is take a step back rather than being in the moment and being heated and whatever, it's a negative emotion. Being able to take a step back, take some deep breaths, remove myself from the situation, analyze it a bit. What's it really about? Why am I frustrated? Why am I feeling this or why am I feeling that? And then come at it from almost a logical standpoint where then I can address it in a more calm state. And sometimes we get angry, and that's okay too. If it's justified and you're angry because of something that's been done to you or said to you that is unfair, unjust, not true, there are times when I think that anger is important to be expressed and to not let somebody bully you into submission or to tell you that it's not okay that you're angry. Yeah, it actually is okay that I'm angry right now. And this is why. Anger is okay too. Rage and unjust anger, a whole nother ballgame. But there's a time and place for a lot of different emotions. And I feel like now in my life, I'm owning all of those emotions and I'm allowing them to be present in my life and not stuffing them away and not holding back and not being easygoing when easygoing was honestly just me repressing my emotions. Oh, I was so naive to think that that's what that was. So while it is so amazing and freeing to feel these emotions, it can make it hard for relationships that aren't used to seeing you have emotions. So prepare yourself for that. But I really think what's important here is that we understand that we are emotional beings. Humans are emotional. That's what makes us human. We are human because of our vast array of emotions that we can have. And if we can tap into that and really get to know ourselves and really feel tuned into our emotions, I think we're going to start to see a lot of things start to go away in society that are this extreme behavior, this numbing behavior, and this horrendous, I don't even know what's going on right now. I don't know what even to call it. And I know a lot of this is being portrayed by media and news as this constant all over thing. It may not be, but what I've seen that is horrific and barbaric and inhumane, we have to squash it. And I don't know how to do that unless we start to have a different narrative around emotional health and what that looks like. Because telling somebody to nut up or man up or suck it up or men don't cry or women are too emotional. And so therefore, in order to compete in a man's world, you can't show emotion at all. That's all bullshit. We all have emotions. And to be emotional does not mean you're less than. So I'm encouraging you to find a way to tune into your emotions. And for me, getting my hormones in balance was really important, but also taking away the things that I was using to numb out, that I was using to hide away from my emotions. in finding those things for yourself. What are those things for you? Getting a list out. Okay, when I'm angry, what do I do? When I'm sad, what do I do? When I'm happy, what do I do? And if a lot of those are reaching for things outside of yourself or doing things outside of yourself, like binge watching TV or scrolling on your phone or over exercising, overeating, shopping online, there's so many ways that we numb out. And if you can tune into, okay, I'm recognizing this behavior, I'm going to stop doing that. Instead, when I feel this emotion, I'm going to do this instead. And celebrating these emotions, like jumping up and down when you're happy, doing a fucking cartwheel. I don't know, whatever that is. Dance in your kitchen. Hug your husband. I don't know. Something to tune into all that, because it's so freaking important that we get back to being humans. And then when we are tuned into our emotions and who we are, I mean, I can't think of a better way to be more awake, well, and empowered than to be tuned into my emotions. I can't live an odd life if I'm not tuned into my emotions and not expressing myself emotionally. That's not odd at all. I wanted to share that because it's something I've been thinking about as I watch what's unfolding on social media, Twitter, every social media outlet, and the news. It's just so much negativity, and it's so much repressed anger and repressed emotions, and you can almost see it. And we as women, as leaders of our family, we're the glue, we're the leaders, we're the change makers, we're a lot in our families. This also goes for women that are not in a relationship or not having kids yet. This is for all women. When we can show up in the world in a healthy way and have healthy relationship with our emotions, we are setting the example of what it looks like to be a true human in this world. We will have better relationships. We will have more self-confidence. We will have more motivation. We will have more just a sense of self, a sense of self-awareness. There's so much good that happens when we have these freaking emotions and show them. There's no trophy case waiting for you because you held back all your emotions. There's nothing that says, oh, awesome job. You were able to suppress all the emotions you've ever had. High five. No. That gets you absolutely nowhere. There's no reward for any of that. The rewards, though, when you are able to express yourself in a healthy way, you're able to show your emotions, have your emotions, and really revel in them, then you are showing up as a whole person. You are showing up in the world as a human, as you were intended. I mean, our whole point in being here is to grow, to learn, to love, and to change. We are not meant to be the same being from when we started this life to when we end it. We are not here on this earth to wake up, go to work, make the money, pay the taxes, drive all the cars, have all the things. That is not even remotely close to why we're here. And until we realize about being a human and trying to evolve as that human. And one of the things I've loved about my recent evolution and growth is how I am feeling in the world and my emotional growth that I've had. And I want that for you as well. Think about your own childhood. I know there's things that you've repressed and thrown into the very deep, dark corners of your soul to never have to deal with again because it was too hard. And how has that worked out for you by not dealing with it? You may have fear and anxiety about certain things in life that come up. There's triggers that bring that stuff back up again. We need to break that cycle, show up in our lives, and deal with the things that are happening in our lives in a healthy way. Have the emotions, process them, live them, whatever that looks like. And then hopefully, by us doing that, we are showing our kids and the people around us how to be a good human. I know, kind of a heavy topic, but I've loved getting to know myself better in this way through my emotions. And then it helps me know what's really important to me. If I'm not feeling strongly about it, I know it's not a priority. And so it's helped me tune in to what's right for me, what's not right for me. Because I now know what that feels like. I've tuned in enough that that feels good, that doesn't feel good. We definitely know now what's a hell yes and what's a hell no. But it takes time, and it takes listening to yourself, and it takes processing things and allowing things to show up, allowing emotions to come up to the surface and not stuffing them away. I can't tell you how big of a part this was for my recent growth. And I'm still growing in this way. I'm still learning how to handle a lot of emotions and how to express them in a healthy way. Sometimes those knee-jerk reactions still happen, and I want to go back to some old learned behaviors, but I'm still growing. I'm still learning. But man, it feels so damn good to be a fucking human. And I hope that for you too. That's it for the day, you guys. Thank you so much for being here. If you haven't yet, I would love it if you could go over to Apple Podcasts and rate and review. If you love the show, either on Spotify, maybe go to YouTube and subscribe to our channel. It's going to help us get in front of more people's eyeballs if you do, and I would be so grateful. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and we'll see you in the next episode. Take care. Thank you again for being here. I am so grateful for your time. And if you liked what you heard, please head to where you listen to podcasts, rate and reviews. Please share on Instagram, your social media channels, wherever else you go, so we can reach as many people as possible so they can meet these amazing women and hear these conversations. If you'd like to connect further, you can find me over at my website at HallieSawyer.com or on Instagram. I'm usually going to be at Hallie_Sawyer or The Odd Life, which is this podcast specific Instagram account. All right. Have a great day, everyone, and we'll see you soon.